And then I've got a special friend who's going to be coming up here to speak in just a moment. So parents, I know once you bring those down, you'll want to come back up here. One of the things that we love to get the chance to do is to share our stories, and we don't get to do it as often as we would like. But when we share our stories, it's good because it helps actually heal us, even by just listening. When we get to hear about how God's been faithful, and we get to hear about how God's been at work, especially in some of the painful or difficult things that we've had to face, we get to do that. And John and I were talking, and John was willing to come, and he wants to share a little bit of his story, especially how God's been at work, and especially this last year. So John is, if you don't know John, he's usually the guy with the headphones back there, and he's usually the guy who's kind of running our live stream stuff, and he's a super faithful guy who's invested a ton of time and energy into the ministry here. You get here what time on Sundays?
Try to get here by 7.
Yeah, okay, so by 7 in the morning, so he's here an hour before I am, so, and he'll stay through here, and he also helps with Harvest and does some great things for them. But John, thanks so much for sharing your story. I am really grateful for you
no
doing
problem.
that.
So thankfully Josh is a short guy like me, so don't have to adjust the mic. So most of you guys probably recognize me from being behind the curtain, which is where I much prefer to be. But I thought I would take this opportunity to kind of share with you, as you have become my extended family over the last probably 7 years now, where I come from, how I got here, and what God is doing in my life. So my life story is long, and I'm not going to bore you, but suffice it to say that I came from a troubled childhood. As early as second grade, I remember lots of issues. Abusive mother, alcoholic, absentee father, screwed up family. And that life persisted until middle school. There was a probably 1 to 2 year period of that part of my life that is been removed from my memory. What I do remember is at 10 years old, I went out back. We had a swamp behind our house, and I sat in front of the swamp. And this is a story I never have shared publicly. Proceeded to mix some ammonia and bleach and breathe it in, and just wait to go to sleep and never wake up again. God wasn't ready for me. But that day, I ceased living. I became very discouraged. Spent the rest of my life basically trying to not live. Addictions, trouble, started really getting bad in school, suspended, and actually getting suspended from school was like a gift for me. Proceeded to continue alcoholism, porn addiction, adrenaline addiction, work addiction, anything you can get addicted to, pretty much I was there. In my early 20s, I was engaged to a woman that I thought we were in love, had my first and only son. And one of the blessings from my upbringing was I learned how to not be a parent. So with no guidance, I tried to do my best at being a father, and wasn't the best at it, but Lord had better plans, and my son turned out to be an incredible human being. my life continued to spiral downhill, slowly but surely. One marriage after another, one relationship after another, addictions getting deeper and worse. Finally, 15 years ago, the wife was currently married to had an affair, and at that point, I had had enough, and realized I needed to try something different. So I decided, let's do marriage counseling, and never had been to counseling before. We went, our first meeting, sat down, kind of shared what was going on in our relationship, and I think we were probably less than 5 minutes in, and the counselor looked me right in the eyes, and she said, "So John, tell me about your depression." And I'm like, depression? It totally took me by surprise, and that started my self-awareness journey. She helped me realize that my childhood was in fact not normal, which I had lived my entire life thinking that's how everybody grows up, and realized that it was just because of my upbringing that I surrounded myself with friends that were pretty much like me. So that slow awakening process continued. I met another woman who was Catholic, and she constantly would share stuff about God. And all through my life, different people had shared, and I had given up on God, at 10 years old. So, my entire life was Lieutenant Dan on top of the mast pole in the storm, shaking my fist at God, saying, "Is that all you got?" But she slowly started to kind of show it to me in a different way. Started listening to Christian radio, and stumbled across a radio show called Renewing Your Mind by R.C. Sproul. And me having the scientific, technical brain that I did, R.C. Sproul just spoke to me. He was speaking my language. He could explain things in logical, technical terms that my brain understood. And I began to say, hey, maybe there's something to this. Of course, all through that time, I'm still embroiled in multiple addictions. Had a shoulder injury, which started my prescription opioid addiction. And obviously my relationship, one more relationship that went downhill. We were two broken people that were not healed, and it's not a good recipe. So 2013, on my birthday, after a big fight, I was like, I cannot continue to live like this. Everything I do, I screw up. I can't make the right decision. And I got on my face on the kitchen floor and said, Jesus, take my life. Take my life over. I can't do this on my own. So, unlike all the testimonies that you hear on the radio where people give their life to Christ and all of a sudden their marriage is fixed and life is good, reality is just a little different. 40 some odd years of living like a heathen does not come undone quickly. It took years to pull myself away from addiction, to start to understand what walking with Christ really is like. Scott and I, a couple years ago, I think, had talked about everybody has their own prodigal journey. And some of us, our far off country is a lot further away than others. So hence the walk back can be a lot longer. And that was my story once I was saved. Spent a couple years trying to find a church that made sense, that taught logically the way I loved R.C. Sproul to teach, that was open, that the people, it wasn't like being in high school again where you had these different cliques. Just church after church after church. There was always some issue. And I had given up looking for probably 6 months, and I was listening to a podcast called, what was it? God's Men of Influence. And it was a podcast basically featuring Christian men. Each one of them every week would come on and share their testimony of how they got to where they were. Their website had a list of churches or a search engine that let you try to find churches that were good for men. And I did a search for my area, and Wyndham Baptist popped up. Not sure how you guys made the list, but yeah.
I don't know how to take that.
I came here to try it out. First time here, I met with Pastor Mark, told him, I was looking for a church. I'd love to get to know him a little bit. And mistakenly asked him to meet me for a coffee. Turns out Pastor Mark is the only Baptist pastor in the world that doesn't drink coffee. So I think we ended up at Subway.
I think so.
And I think it was a 3-hour lunch. And I got to share my story with Mark at that point, and realized that his way of being Christ-like, of showing Christ's love to those of us that are broken, just fit my personality. So started coming. Due to my past, had massive anxiety issues. There were many times where I would get all the way to the parking lot and see the sea of cars and be like, can't do it, turn around and go home. Then COVID happened, and I got a purpose. All of a sudden, my skill set was needed because church was closed. I had the pleasure of having Mark come to my house for, I think it was like 6 months.
We will bring the church to you.
Yeah. So Mark came to my impromptu broadcast station in Bridgeton, and we proceeded to broadcast church there for the next several months until, the saner minds prevailed and we got to open church again. Through that time period, I still didn't feel like I was growing as a Christian. I still struggled, anger management issues, still struggled with addiction. What I didn't realize is, especially with long-term addiction, it never goes away. It's always there. But feeling those urges made me feel less than a Christian. Constantly doubting, am I really a Christian? How strong is my faith if I keep coming home wanting nothing more than a bottle of Vicodin, a glass of whiskey, and a unmonitored internet connection? So I struggled with that for quite a while. And then God gave me a gift last year that nobody would ask for. And it's a struggle to call it a gift, but losing my son changed my life. It forced me to look at who I was as a man, as a Christian, and I had to make a choice. Is God really there for me? And I decided my only choice was to lean fully on him. And that's what I did. Struggled for a few months wrestling with what I was going to do for the rest of my life, realizing that I had spent 3 decades of my life working for this company, pouring my heart and soul into a corporation that could care less about me. The people that I worked with and directly for obviously cared for me. Several of them traveled quite a ways to come to my son's funeral. But the corporation as a whole was just soulless. And I'd spent, like I said, my entire life, or a huge portion of my life, working there. Didn't take vacations, worked as many hours as I could. That's one of my addictions. And wasn't seeing the spiritual fruit from that. And other than it did give me a very, very nice paycheck, which let me do all the stuff that I've been able to do here for the church. So that was a blessing. So I decided to start thinking about taking my side hustle of video production to full time. And again, being the doubter that I am, I wrestled with, is this my own selfish ambition to, escape corporate world? So I began meeting with Mark and Pastor Bill, as well as bringing it up with my men's group and some other close friends. And the consensus was, no, this looks like someplace God wants you to go. And one of my meetings with Mark, he said, this step you're taking, you have this vision of where you'd like to go with this, but be prepared for God to take it someplace completely different. And I was like, yeah. I've got this. And as my business started, it was extremely expensive to get off the ground, the cost of incorporation, insurance, just all the stuff. Thankfully, I live a very well below my means lifestyle. So I had a substantial amount of savings to fall back on. And had some work come in. Things were looking pretty good, and then all of a sudden work started drying up. And this brings in someone else into my life. A year and a half ago, I had some phone conversations with this person. She had some conferences coming up and was looking for someone to do the live streaming. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I didn't end up getting the job. But in those phone conversations, she immediately made me comfortable with opening up and sharing my life with her. And I would later go on to introduce her as the most incredible human being I've ever met. This year, I began working more and more closely with her, and we became friends, good coworkers, different enough that we can be super creative. I, not so jokingly, tell everybody that she's my adopted little sister. But getting to know her has fundamentally changed my life. The level of forgiveness that she shows, the amount of love that she pours into other people. I'm sure some of you remember Norm's bucket analogy, where you just need someone to pour love into your life so that you have enough to overflow into other people's lives. She was that person. Just like I said, strangers, people she's never met, someone at a gas station. She was always showing love to these people. Her faithfulness to God, her faithfulness to her husband, her faithfulness to her mission that she does is just off the charts. Hey, it's future me here. I just wanted to interject on this part, as this testimony was completely off the cuff and unscripted. I left out a very important detail about my relationship with Catherine, and what that has brought to my life. So the biggest thing that she has brought into my life through the work that I do with her organization, Stop Trafficking US, has been a sense of purpose, a mission outside of myself, bigger than myself, something that every man needs, a purpose, a thing to fight for. Most men find that in providing and protecting their wife, their kids. Obviously, that was all taken from me, and Catherine gave me this new purpose in life, to protect other children through our efforts of education and raising awareness to help prevent sexual abuse of children. So I just wanted to add that in there, that is an extremely important part of the growth that I have experienced over the past several months. So back to old me. And she came alongside me with all of my still, unhealed issues. Has given me stacks of books to read, has given me tons of free counsel. And over the past several months, I've gotten comments from several of you about the change that they've seen in me. And I guess what I wanted to highlight is the walk with Christ can be long. Longer for some of us than others, but we all have our own journey. We all come from our own faraway country. The key takeaway is let people into your life. God has people staged, ready to be in your life to help you along that prodigal journey. And the people that that I have had come into my life, obviously Mark has become a very good friend, and many of you I call brothers and sisters. The fact that I don't have really a blood family doesn't matter to me anymore, because I have this huge, new dysfunctional family that I get to be part of. So I just wanted to get up here, kind of share my journey, so that hopefully people that maybe they're in a spot where they're doubting, am I really a Christian? Or maybe you haven't even come to Christ yet, and you're wondering, is this real? I can assure you it's real. There's no way I would have been able to get through the life that I've lived, lose my only son, and then get up here on stage and tell you how many blessings that I have in my life. It's just, there's no other explanation other than God is in control. God has your path laid out. You just have to open your eyes and be willing to accept that maybe that path isn't from here to there. It's winding through the woods and the mountains. But at the end of the day, he all wants the same thing for all of us, to come to know him and to come to trust him. And that's where God brought me, especially over the last year, is just trust in him. I don't know where next month's rent's coming from, but I know he's got it covered. It's just give yourself over and let God, let God guide you. Don't sit home on your couch saying, oh, please God, take care of me. You still have to do the work. But if you do the work and you're following his prompting, he will take care of you. And hopefully that encourages some of you. I think that's all I've got, Mark. Okay. I've been on this side of the camera for too long now.
Thanks. John, you're a real gift and an encouragement to us, and we're so grateful. And like you said, John's definitely walking into this foggy, cloudy road where you don't know where you're going. But from what he's told me, it's been the sweetest time of his life to experience that. So we're grateful for you. And where his work felt like it was meaningless, now the work that he does is rescuing people. So we're grateful. We're praying for you. And, as a church, we're glad to be part of that.